welcome to today's show. Shane, how are you doing this morning, man?
Doing well this morning. You know, it's finally starting to warm up a little bit as we record this podcast here in Atlanta anyway. So I'm hoping winter's about over because winter's not my favorite time of year. So
What is your favorite time of year?
I like spring and summer, right? More like summer. I don't mind it being hot. My wife doesn't, but I like the heat. I like no allergies in spring. You know, spring and fall have allergies, so I like summer
Right.
the best, I think.
That's mostly gone. I'm with you 100%. When I lived in Hawaii, that was the summer all year round. I loved it. My wife was not as big of a fan because she loves the seasons. She likes the change and all that stuff. And I'm like, dude, I could do without that 100%.
I can live in the Caribbean all the time, you know, right? With that, whatever you want to call it. It's heat, but it's next to the water and the ocean, and you know, I can handle that. I also don't mind a little bit of cool, you know, like in the mountains when it's got a hint of cold, but I don't like the allergies that come with those seasons. So
Yeah, it's tough. Well, we moved from Hawaii, and now we live in the mountains, and I've lived here before we moved to Hawaii. I did, and that it gets exactly what you're describing, even in summer. So we're high enough up that summer will be warm. It's like 80, right? It's about as hot as it'll get here. That's like a hot day, and then but even still, the temperature will still drop to about 50 at night, just because we're so high up. So it's that you still have to like put a jacket on, you know if you're hanging out outside or whatever. Which is I do kind of like that too. But to me that's still summer because it's just So it's Well, good. We're jumping into summer, man. This week has been a crazy one for me. It feels like this week has been like 4 weeks. I don't know why. There's just been so much going on. Well, you and I were joking yesterday about how I don't ever leave this seat.
yeah,
This backdrop right here, hanging out here in the studio, and I'm like, I don't. After we got off the call, I was like, Shane, you're right. I don't ever get out of this damn seat. I'm like, holy shit. So yeah.
No, I've talked about that. Wednesdays is my meeting day, and I was complaining to my COO yesterday. I said, yeah, dude, sit down in your chair, and 4 hours later you look up and you haven't moved, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, it's been one of those weeks for me, which is good. But at the same time, it's just like I'm excited to not have this week. I'm not normally I can't wait for the weekend guy at all. Like it doesn't really make much of a difference to me. But my daughter dances this weekend, so I kind of look forward to that. So that's coming up, and so I'm excited to be able to watch her, and so that gets me out of this chair, be able to step out, go to watch her competition. And I tell you what, man, little girls dancing is no joke. These people,
like Dance Mom, right?
Dude, it is. And these people take this so seriously. I never in my life would have realized that it was so important that you're, 10-year-old girl, and it's crazy. And these moms,
there's been a couple of TV shows about that.
Oh yeah. And I've watched a few of them because my daughter really likes them, so I'll sit there with her and watch them. And dude, it's wild. I thought that was like just TV, right? I was like, this is just Hollywood doing their thing. Oh no, that shit's real. These moms are crazy. These moms act like they're the ones out there dancing. It's like it's literally with the epitome of living vicariously through your children. Yeah. That's 100% what happens with a lot of these women, and you could see it's like, holy crap! Like I've literally, so they do these conventions at the competitions where they have like these master instructors come in from all over the country and teach them, right? Teach these girls, and it's a big room, right? It's like a ballroom in a hotel, and there's a big open, lots of girls in there, like 100 girls, 150, 200 girls in some of these rooms. And I've watched some of these moms literally like pep talking their daughter on how to shoulder their way to the front of the room.
Oh wow.
Like basically just push people out of the way, just move forward to creep up, and then you just slowly move, and then eventually you're gonna, and I'm like, oh my gosh! And these girls are like little. These are like little girls who should be like playing with Barbies and playing house and
doing things like that, huh?
Not trying to like become champions. So I don't know. It's wild though, because the Olympics is obviously going on right now at the time we're recording this, and there's several stories that always come out about these Olympians, dude, when they're like a little kid and they have no normal life because they're pushed to this, ice skating or skiing or whatever it is. And that's like literally all that they do. And so I don't know, it's hard, right? Because if you want to be the best, you gotta You got to put it in, and which I think is interesting enough. This little kind of topic actually leads to the topic of today's show as we dive into the next episode inside of our series of how to break through the invisible ceilings of scaling inside of your law firm. But it comes down to culture. Yeah. Right? Culture. And this is a buzzword. People talk about culture. People create mission statements and they do some core values and they're just super excited and then they don't do anything with them. But then they talk about the culture of their company. And I don't know. Culture is almost mystified. It's referred to in a way of like this elusive thing that if you can capture it, somehow you're going to have a quote unquote culture that you want. And I have opinions on it. And I know you have opinions on it, but when it comes to culture in a law firm, I'm curious about this. I want you to think back to when you first started, like when and like do you even remember, or maybe it was right at the beginning? I don't know. Like, when did culture become an actual thought for you of like, oh, I need to like build a culture, or was it right at the gate?
No, it definitely wasn't right out of the gate because right out of the gate it was me, my wife, and like her mom. And then one of her mom's coworkers, that retired and came on board. So it was all pretty tight in the beginning, right? The culture is almost family, as crazy as that is. I mean, everybody involved I knew pretty heavily, right? Or I had some big connection. Yeah. I think, like the first step of culture, I think becomes a real issue when you've got about 7 to 8 employees. Mm-hmm. Because I think at that point you have enough people there that there is a dynamic. There is something going on. There's interpersonal relationships. So there's an opportunity. Before that, I think you can sort of the culture is going to be pretty much how you are as the lawyer. I mean, because it's just small enough. You're going to have all this, your presence and your force and your energy just controls everything until it hits a certain point. And for us, that was about 7 or 8 employees when just there were personal dynamics involved, right? And things that happened. And that's when I first sort of noticed it. And then I think another big hit, though, was when we hit 20 employees. And that was when, I started having sort of an office manager, started breaking 1 or 2 people into different teams. Mm-hmm. And then culture became an issue, right? And we looked up one day and we had a culture of people who were just sort of running rampant. And, that day I had 7 case managers and I fired 3 when I realized sort of what was going on.
You did that all in a day?
All in a day, yeah. And my CO looked at me and said, oh, God. And at the time, we didn't call him a CO. At the time, we sort of called him an office manager. But, He looked at me and said, this is really what you're going to do? And I said, yeah, dude. I don't see a way around it. He goes, okay.
Here's a question, and I think this will bring up a good point. It'll also, don't get pissed, Shane, because I'll also kind of come at you a little bit on this because I agree that that's probably what happened. But when you don't create culture with intention, stuff like that happens, 100%. And I think it's important to realize that you as the leader, as the firm, like person owning the firm, like there's like this, you have this responsibility to create and to build it. And a lot of times we don't pay attention to it until it gets to that point. Cause then we're
and that's what happened. Right. Yeah. And, I was at a stage where I was trying to step back off of, I was putting some leadership in place between a bunch of people and myself. Yeah. And probably didn't handle that well. Right. It was probably like, hey guys, this is your new boss. Don't send everything to me. That was probably the extent of the conversation. Yeah. And it didn't go well. And some people didn't like it and resented it. And next thing you know, I'm looking up and I've got people mocking, making fun of somebody I put in charge. And it's like, and then, it's like everything else though too, right? When you see culture, usually when you notice it as the leader, you've been super busy doing your boss stuff, right? Doing your lawyer stuff, dealing with dealing with everything. So you looked up and then you're like, what is going on? Uh-huh. And then you start peeling back the layers and you're like, holy cow. And you just see more and more and more. And then maybe there's a better way to do it than what I did. I didn't know a better way at the time for sure. And I don't, honestly, I think certainly 2 out of those three people I let go needed to be let go, right? One sort of got sucked in.
Right.
As I think back in hindsight, right? One we could have just kept, but
Yeah.
two of them needed to go for sure.
Well, I
And
think if you look at what you went through, and it was a great example of what I think you're right. I think most people when they build anything, they go through this. But what I would love for all of our listeners just to grasp is the fact that if you can make culture and a priority of intention, like on purpose, don't allow culture to become default, but put it in an intention. If you can at least even mentally accept that that's possible to do and that it matters and it's important, what you can avoid is a culture that then becomes something really hard to shift.
yeah,
Right. And when you're at 10 employees, there's some carnage, right? You might have to let a few people go. Even at 20 employees, you might have to let a few people go, but you can make the shift pretty abruptly, right? Most people are going to make that shift, but all of a sudden now you're at 40 employees. Now that you're at 50. Now you're at 100. Now you're at multiple locations. Now you've got management levels of executive down to mid-level, down to low level, and you've got all these. Now all of a sudden you can't just go in and drop a bomb and say, hey, you're out of here, you're the bad culture.
No.
It doesn't work anymore like that. And so we without it being intentional, you unknowingly build yourself into an environment where you have just created a culture that's fighting against the mission that you actually have and what you're trying to build. Right.
Yeah. And I think a lot of culture issues, there are two key components I see, right? One is the hiring process, right?
Yeah.
Are you doing hiring and onboarding? I'm going to put those in one bucket, right? Because I think, hiring for a good fit with your team and culture. And what I mean by that is who has those same values, right? And it's hard to test, right? How do you test somebody's work ethic? How do you test, some of those things? It's just you're asking interview questions, trying to figure it out, right? I think one issue we have as lawyers is we get pretty technical and we're trying to test for their technical knowledge way too much more or way too much versus, those personality traits, right? Are they going to, do they have the same values we have, right? Like in personal injury and tons of lawyers, do they like to help people, right? Or are they going to get jaded and not like our clients and feel like our clients get what they deserve, right? This is a huge issue in criminal defense. I would assume it is in immigration law.
Right.
Even, all the other areas, right? Do they like your clients? And if they don't, that's a problem. And we don't spend enough time figuring that out on the law firm, but also your onboarding process. There needs to be some stuff that reinforces your values and sort of shows them this is what we value here.
Yeah.
It's
an easy way to frame up what you're saying is you got to hire and fire based off the values of the company. Right. What does the company stand for? And I know this I have a hard time sometimes talking about this subject because it sounds stupid and cliche. It just does. Right. But it's stupid and cliche only because people devalue what we're talking about. Like with company values, if you actually do what I just said and you hire and you fire and you manage off of those company values and they actually mean something, right? I don't know. I mean, I would, if I were to look at probably 10 different law firms' company values right now, let's just hope you all at least have some, that you've actually established what those are and they're at least put up somewhere, maybe in a break room, right? But even if that's, let's say you all have them, I'll bet you out of 10 of them, 9 of you guys have the word integrity inside of those value systems, right? Because everybody, it's a buzzword. It's like, integrity. Yeah, we want people to tell the truth. That sounds like a great idea. The problem is then if it's just a word and we have these words that we've come up with, but we don't actually manage by them and we don't live by them ourselves, and it doesn't mean that you're not an integrous person. It just means you've got to create an environment where when you're coaching, mentoring, when you're hiring, when you're firing, when you're dealing with every part of it, that you're able to link it to where did they get out of alignment with these company values, right? If you want a culture of accountability, for example, right, it's just no different than raising your children, right? Or training a dog is actually probably a better example, right? If you don't want your dog to shit in the living room, well, then if he does, there's got to be consequences with a reward system on getting him to shit outside. right? It's not, but every time you let him do it with no consequence and your dog shits there and realizes there's nothing that goes wrong and the shit sits in the middle of the living room and then it's just chilling there and nothing happens and the dog thinks it's fine. So he learns, he basically develops his own level of execution, his own culture based upon the fact that there was no consequence or dealing with it. And there's so it's having and identifying that if you don't manage off of those, then you're doing nothing more than throwing these buzzwords out there of integrity and or whatever, of accountability, of whatever it is. And I don't know any firm that wouldn't want integrity and accountability. But I think out of those two, integrity is kind of our baseline, but accountability becomes the big one. This is the biggest area I've watched any business struggle is in people that don't take accountability for their lane, or there's not clear accountability. And then this is where culture, people start getting pissed off at someone else, and they get mad at someone else for not doing their job when they're not, quote unquote, doing their job. And it becomes this blame game thing and everything's shifting around, which totally ruins the fact that you as the owner of the law firm are out there spending time, energy, and effort and money to bring these leads in to try to serve and help these clients. But now you got a bunch of people who are just mad at somebody else on the team because, well, they quote unquote clocked out 5 minutes early and they're what? It's stupid shit. It's like this dumb argument.
And what we see the most, right? And my firm has different departments, right? Some firms are structured differently. I believe the most efficient is to have, all your claims set up by a claims team. Your intake and sales in one department, some of your case management and the bills and records in another department. And what we see is if you're not real careful, these different departments create friction exactly like you're talking about, right? So-and-so didn't do this, so-and-so didn't do this, and there's friction in between there. And part of the culture has to be removing some of those friction points, right? And some of that's just by interactions, right? And it comes to not the Pizza Fridays or whatever, but it comes to some of those activities design, and it can be casual. It can be even a more structured thing where they get together and the team leads get together and discuss problems they're seeing amongst themselves. But that some of that gets rid of some of that silo, blame everybody else situations you can see in larger firms in particular. But I guarantee if you've got 20 people, you've got some of that silo issues going on in your own firm.
Yep.
I mean,
oh yeah. And I don't think you can fully avoid it because it's going to happen, right? There's going to be cliques. There's going to be all of that. I think the overarching theme really comes down to, do these people, can they see a vision inside of what they're doing inside of the firm that supersedes the daily mundane tasks that they're doing? Like, can they get passionate about what they do, regardless of what department they're in?
And that's what I talked about is number two. I talked about hiring and onboarding. Number two, I think, is the communication, which goes in line with, do you coach people to those values? Do you communicate the why on most everything, right? Because that's where I've fallen into issues in the past sometimes when I'm trying to make a shift in the culture as the leader, right? Yeah. I've thought about this 15, 20 hours, maybe more, and then I try to articulate it over a 30-minute talk with some of my team, and then I get frustrated that they're not in the same spot I'm at. Well, no kidding. Right. I spent 20 hours getting where I'm at, guys. Right, to myself. I spent 20 hours getting here. It's no wonder when I first exposed them to it, they're not 20 hours in. They're 30 minutes in, where I was, 19 and a half hours ago or longer. Yeah. Because a lot of times you've had in the back of your head for a while too, marinating kind of deal. Yeah. So that ability to communicate and recommunicate and over-communicate over and over, I think is the part where I'll say where I fall down the most, right, is that area. I mean, we've got some of the hiring. We try to hire as best we can, along with our values. We've got an onboarding process, but it's that next, that's communicating thing and part of that's coaching, right? You're in trouble because this is what you did, which doesn't align with our values. Yep. Which is a lot of times we will drop off that, and it doesn't align with our values, right? Yeah. I mean, I've seen, well, coach, hey, this is bad. You didn't do this. You put in the notes that you made this call and you didn't. That's bad. You can't do that. But we don't link it to because of integrity. This integrity issue, it just doesn't work. We're going to have to fire it. Whatever that issue is. We don't link it to that so the team doesn't hear it as well. And that's a real issue, I think, is that poor communication amongst the leadership on those core values.
Yeah, when I think, this is a question I'd have all you guys write down, because this is a way you can do exactly what you just said, Shane, every time. And it's easy, and you want to put it back on the employee. So if you're trying to shift culture, or you're just trying to manage on the culture, like you're actually using the core values as the framework, which is how they're supposed to be done. If you've done it correctly, your mission statement and core values are actually the foundational pillars of your entire organization. So if you haven't done it right, then know that that's where you need to start shifting towards. But this question, write this down, because it's really effective in getting your team to buy into it. But so, for example, let's say you had somebody in intake, for example, that maybe got on the phone with somebody and they made some mistakes on the call, and maybe they misled the client to try to get them to sign because they really wanted that commission or whatever it is. But they did something that was out of the process that you have set up for the team. In the coaching of them, it's very simple. Here's the question. Asking them, how did what you just do take you out of alignment with core value A? Right? Choose one, whichever one it is. Could be accountability, integrity, whatever your core values are. Pick one. And then just ask your employee, how did what they do just take them out of alignment with that? Like, how were they off base? Right? And get them to then start looking at their actions that connect to the core values, and vice versa. When they do something well, let's say they've done really well and they had let's say we'll take intake as it will we'll stay in intake. And intake, this person did a really great job. And, maybe their call was audited and they hit all the check boxes and they did an amazing job, or they got to the end of the week and they had, they hit their KPIs, right? The way we got to hold them accountable to a standard. And they hit it and they did a great job. And then asking them the same question again, saying, hey, good job. How did this week align you? How were you aligned with the core values? How did those impact the way you showed up? And at first, if you've never done this, your team's going to kind of think it's weird. They will, because they're going to be like, or they won't have an answer. They're just going because they have not mentally connected it. But this is where, if you can bring people in from the beginning and you start rolling through this way and you start to realize that those core values are more than just 4 words on a wall, that's actually what we do. And it's like, oh, okay. So, I was accountable, or maybe the mission is truly to help your clients. Like, it's to really, because, like, for example, with you at Shane in a PI firm, it's like these people are hurt and injured. If my mission is truly to make these people get back to whole and get what they deserve because they had this accident, and we want to be able to serve them and get them feeling better and back to their normal life, so that it was almost like this accident never happened. If that's what we want, well, then how is what onboarding is doing, or what intake is doing, or what your attorneys are doing, and being able to have them connect that to those, that you connect those actions to the values themselves, it'll start to create this game where everything they do, their mind is now already connecting it for themselves, which starts to create the culture.
One thing we've done in the past is we've had people notice a coworker and their actions and say, okay, this is what they did. This is the core value it ties to a good job. So you nominate somebody else based on what they did.
Yeah.
Versus you trying to just link it all yourself. We found that was a technique that worked pretty well for a while.
Well, I think that's the whole point of Employee of the Month.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. I think that's where that comes from, is what you just described. And if used correctly, it's effective. Just like, pizza on Fridays or casual Fridays or whatever. That doesn't drive culture unless it's part of the embodiment of what we're talking about. Then it actually does help. But just, having a shitty culture in your company where the people are not accountable, everybody's talking shit about everyone else behind their back, just throwing pizza at them on Friday afternoon, it's not going to do anything.
Won't fix it for sure.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't bring you to that place. So, as we wrap up today, this subject of culture, we could probably break this into its own 10-part series, honestly, because there's so many nuances. The last thing I want to at least touch on is the fact that if you, as the leader, don't care about your people, and it's more than that. It's because I'm gonna assume you all care about your people. If they don't know you care. If they don't understand that you care about them as people, it's really hard to get them to buy into a culture that's going to be a great environment for the whole team, right? So there's got to be this understanding that you as the these people are assets to your organization and they have to be treated as such. I made the mistake of not doing this when I first got into business and first stepped into a leadership role. And I paid the piper for it the entire time that these people worked for me, because I came in like a wrecking ball. And I was all I had was the stick. I didn't have any kind of a carrot, and it was just whack people in the head if they got out of line, because I had the statement, which I hope none of you have said this, but you probably have, because I know a lot of people have. But it was, people were like, well, why do I have to do all this stuff? They're getting paid, right? And I'm like, your reward is your paycheck. That thing that you get on Friday that I'm paying, that I'm literally taking out a pen and signing and handing to you. Like, I don't need to do all the rest of this stuff. Like, just come here. You're being paid to do a job. Right?
That's one of those things that, you should probably keep to yourself in your own head, because we've all thought it, right?
Oh, yeah.
I guarantee every business owner has thought it. Every law firm owner has. But it's kind of like some of the things with your spouse too, right? You're like, dude, I can say this comment and it may even be like 85, 90% true. But boy, is there going to be some repercussions if you do it, right? Kind of deal.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's definitely not going to get you what you want.
It's my way or the highway, right? So those are two phrases you probably don't need to use very often, because I've done.
There's another one that I think you've done, Shane, that you have to have. I know I've done it, where you're sitting there and you point. If you can see the sign on the building, that's even better. But if not, I couldn't see the sign on the building when I said this, but I pointed like there was the sign of the building, and I said, "Whose name's on the front of this building?"
I did. When I did it, in my defense, it was sort of lighthearted. Right?
Okay, good. Yours was like a joke.
It was it was halfway lighthearted, right? It was lighthearted, but I did want to get the point across that I was done with this conversation.
Uh-huh.
And so in hindsight, should I have done it? Probably not. Right? That probably doesn't work well anytime.
No.
I think it's actually, if that's going to happen, it's probably better for somebody on your team to do it versus you.
Right.
It's still not the most effective.
No, it's not. It's just it. But I think it's the mentality. At least you were partially joking. When I did it, I wasn't joking at all. That was back in my Iron Fist days, where I didn't know how to actually manage people and create culture. I just knew how to have a standard and then beat people's ass. I mean, that was literally it. And you can beat people into submission to where they will perform to the lowest standard you're trying to hold them to, but that destroys culture. Yeah. So you can get them to execute. And I think this is a concern if you only manage off of KPIs. Which sounds weird, right? We have to manage off KPIs. But if that's done in a way that's like the iron fist, it destroys culture. And then in the long term, in the short term, you can beat people into getting the numbers, but it doesn't build it. And
the KPIs need to link to your values and what you're trying to achieve. And I think that's where most of the time we don't take that extra step to communicate why this KPI is important, right? Because it's not the KPI itself. The KPI represents something. And if you can link the KPI to what you're doing and why, and keep in mind, you have to do this over and over and over and over for it to sink in. I think it can help. But like I said, that's not you just managing by KPIs. It's because the KPI represents something else. What's an action item somebody could do on culture, Trevor? For this next week or for their firm to look at it?
What I would say is the first way you can even really identify is you have to take a cold, hard look. And what I would say for an action right now is let's get to, in your firm, this could take you 10 minutes. Go in a quiet place, go somewhere you can just be alone and think, close your door in your office, and be honest with yourself and actually look at how would you currently define the culture. Right? That's the first part of this step. The next part of the step is to get a few key players on your team to also identify the culture, right? And ask, is this culture in alignment with these core values, right? Start to find out, does your team even know what these core values are? But you have to get to the facts of where you're actually at with culture before you can try to shift or do any moves with culture. So as far as this is why I say this podcast could be multiple series long, which I think will probably dog ear to do because it's worth it. It's very valuable. But that first statement is really for you, being honest with yourself as the owner. Do you manage off a culture, like off of core values, or not off of culture, but off of core values and off of a mission statement, right? Do you actually do it, and what is that? And then take your key one or two, no more than 3 people that are on your team, and find out how they define it. and just ask them in a meeting. Just be like, hey, define the culture of our firm. What would you define our culture as? Now, what do you want it to be? What is it? What is it actually? Right? And what I have found every time I've done this self-assessment on my teams, or I've gone in and helped other firms do this self-assessment, that the answers are actually usually pretty similar, but they're never what you think. Right? This will be like, hey, you're living in a fantasy land of, hey, my culture is this and this and this, and then your teams are actually saying, no, that's not. Here's the culture. The culture's this, this, and this, and you'll find that it doesn't actually line up unless you've done a really good job.
It may be different inside of each of your silos too, right?
Yep.
Each of your departments, which that can be maddening in and of itself, because you're like, how can this team be doing so great culture-wise and living everything, and this other team is not?
Yep. And so,
like I say, culture is huge. It's hard, and it's hard to measure as well, right? So it's a challenging subject. So.
Yep, it is, but it's an important one. So take that first step, get yourself clear about where would you actually define it, write it down where you see it so that you have that awareness, and then obviously tune into a lot of the shows that we talk about are centered around this, and they're different levels of it, but there's a lot of value you can get here. Speaking of which, if you got value from today's show, we would appreciate it if you give us a like and a subscribe, or share this show up with somebody you know who would get value from this as well. Maybe they've got a law firm that you know of, or it's your boss, and you're like, you know what, he needs some help with the culture. Let's share this show. Be like, hey, you're never going to guess what happened here. I heard these guys, and they were talking about this thing. So, but share the show up. We appreciate it. This show grows because you're helping us grow. Our whole purpose of doing this show is just to create value for you guys on things we've learned along the way as we've learned, operated, and grown our business to really see, how do these little intricate parts that we talk about, how do they fit into this scalability of how do you break through these invisible ceilings. So super excited for an announcement that's coming very soon. So I guess I'll just say that. So stay tuned for that. We're going to be able to get something in your hands here quickly that's going to be quite valuable for you, and we're going to get it to you for free. So we're excited about that as well. If you are a law firm owner and some of the things we talk about, maybe you've been following with us for a while, if you want to jump into really figuring out how do you break through the invisible ceilings that you currently have inside of your law firm and the things that are keeping you stuck from being able to scale and grow, we do offer on a selective basis, a one-on-one, case-by-case, where we'll dive deep into your firm. We do it free of charge. If you want to see if you qualify for that, head over to legaledgecoaching.com, where you can get the information there to be able to jump on a call with us, to where we'll dive deep into your firm and really help you kind of map out the next 90 days how to break through some of the things that are keeping you stuck today and right now. But other than that, we appreciate you guys being listeners of the show. Have a fantastic rest of your day. We're out.